Hi, everyone. It's Tessa.
And Joe.
From the Unveiling Paradise podcast.
Tessa, summer is almost here, and so many of our listeners are about to have their epic destination wedding.
And we are so excited for you guys.
Before the big day, guys, we want you to make sure you listen to these 3 episodes.
Episode 62, Deep Diving Your Wedding Ceremony.
Episode 53, Questions Your Wedding Guests Will Ask.
And episode 31, the final countdown to your wedding day.
And if you're planning your wedding here in Hawaii, hit us up and ask us about our Unveiling Paradise podcast promo.
Happy planning. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Hi, Joe. Good morning.
Hey, how's it going?
It's good. I am really excited about today. Do you know why?
Yeah, I do.
So you did read the show notes today.
I did. I actually read the show notes, and we actually have someone in our studio audience today.
He's staring at us. So I'm really excited today because we get to talk about food.
We don't get to taste food, but we're talking about it. So.
Why aren't we tasting food?
Right?
What happened to us? So we're talking about food. We're talking about catering. And I want to make sure that we know that today we are talking about off-site catering. So not at a hotel, not on a property that provides food, but catering your wedding off-site. I'm excited today to introduce Jason Takemura of Bamboo Catering.
Hey, Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you?
So excited that you're here. Did you bring us food?
I did not bring food, and I should have brought food.
Next time you're on, bring us food.
Definitely.
All right, let's talk about you really quick. Give us your bio. How did you get into this biz? How did you start Bamboo Catering? Like, how does it all work for you?
I used to play baseball at UH.
Okay.
Long story short, stopped playing. My roommate at the time was a cook.
Okay.
And he got me my first cooking job at Angelo Pietro's. And from there, I fell in love with it. Started working at Suntory, doing sushi and teppanyaki. Decided this is what I wanted to do. Went to culinary school in Portland, Oregon, Le Cordon Bleu. And from there, moved back home, opened up a couple restaurants with some partners, had a couple of kids. And my wife said, time to start spending some time raising a family. I was working 70 to 90 hours a week.
Wow.
And that's how I got into catering.
And now you're killing it. And you do a lot of weddings, right?
Yeah, we did a lot of weddings, especially last year.
All right, we have a lot of questions for you, Jason. You know, this is something we talk about all the time. Food and drink can make or break a wedding, right? You know, so like when you think of a great wedding, you always normally think of, they had really good food. They had really good drinks. You think of a crappy wedding, it's always the food, right? It's always the food is cold or the fish tastes funky or whatever. Yes. Today, we want to get into that with you. So for today's show, we're going to be taking a deep dive into how to have an amazing catering experience.
So let's get started. Welcome to Unveiling Paradise, your go-to destination wedding podcast. I'm Tessa, wedding planner and owner of Fred & Kate Events.
And I'm Joe, wedding and adventure photographer of Joseph Esser Photography. We are based in Hawaii, one of the biggest, most popular locations for destination weddings.
We want to share our real-life experiences with you, give you insight from a professional's perspective, and still make sure you're having fun in the process.
We're huge believers in the fact that planning a destination wedding can be one of the most amazing experiences, and we want to bring you along.
We're so excited to talk with you about weddings, Hawaii, and everything else under the sun.
So pack your bags and let's get started.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the show. Jason, super stoked to have you here. Before we get started, I have some new information that I'd like to share with everybody.
Oh, new information.
New information. So, Joe, I don't think you know this, but did you know that I went to culinary school?
This is so not new information. Every time you have the opportunity to share that with everybody.
It's a big deal.
But guess what?
What?
We're sitting next to an actual chef who went to Le Cordon Bleu.
That's fair. He did. I did not go to Le Cordon Bleu. I just went to a basic school, but I did go to culinary school, if anyone's wondering.
Okay,
Nice.
So we are going to take what you have to say with maybe a little bit more influence than what I have to say. But Jason, here today, he's our pro.
He's the pro.
All right, let's get into this. So you guys are really the star, I would say, of the reception. Right?
For sure. The stars.
Whether
We try to be.
how do you think about that? How do you just get started with, like, you're going to feed all these people? It's such an important meal. Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, I think, it starts with a cocktail hour because right after the ceremony, that party gets started. First things is basically your drinks and your past hors d'oeuvres or action stations and whatever type of cocktail hour you're trying to have. But that's how the party gets started.
So what's kind of fun is at my wedding, instead of apps, we actually did pre-ceremony apps too. So as people walked in, I knew they'd be hungry. So we served them food first. Then they sat down, we got married, and then more food after. So again, for us, because I went to culinary school, food was a central part of my wedding throughout the whole thing. There are so many really, really cool ways that we can add food to create this really great experience. And I know that that's one of our questions later. So I want to kind of get started into the meat of the questions.
Okay.
We have a bunch of things we want to talk about. Let's start with just this broad question of food service. For a wedding reception, what are your recommendations? What are the pros and cons if you are doing a plated meal versus family style versus buffet style?
Good question. So I think a lot of it has to do with the formality of the program.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. If you got a long program, you got a lot of speeches, you got all of that formal part of it.
Yeah.
You need people in their seats.
Yeah.
Right. So now plated does make a lot of sense.
So you're bringing out multiple courses and people are taking their time. And that makes sense. That makes sense.
Versus, an action stations or buffet where they're getting up out of their seats or, hey, I want seconds, but dad just got up to make a speech. I can't go. And, it gets a little awkward on that part from a guest perspective. But then you got the flip side. You got the, hey, we're here to have fun. We want to celebrate. We want to get dinner done. We want to have fun. And then we want to party.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
I've never thought about this, but it does have to do with the formality, right?
Does.
If you're having a laid back, low key reception,
yes,
and you just want people kind of grazing or whatever,
yeah,
buffet would make perfect sense.
In Hawaii, especially, we got the sunsets, right? And outdoor weddings, they got to go get their sunset photos. If you're doing a plated dinner and bride and groom got to go, it's when they come back, you're in the middle of the third course. It's like, hey, where do we go with this? And
right.
So it gets a little tricky on that part, but that's where we rely on the coordinators.
For sure. So as the wedding planner in the room, for me, I totally agree with Jason in terms of buffet versus family style. When I'm talking to couples, a lot of it is, how formal is it, right? Do you want your guests to be more interactive and kind of walking around with buffet style or even action stations, right? Just walking around, helping yourself to food, little plates, or, going down a line. You have a better opportunity of kind of talking with other people versus just the people you're sitting next to at your table. With a plated, like you said, with a very heavy program, you want people seated and paying attention to what's happening.
Yes.
Right? So buffet tends to be a little more casual because you kind of have that ability to kind of stand up and walk around and do what you like. Sometimes there's a photo booth going on at the same time. Sometimes there's, a shave ice machine or other things happening where you're not wanting people to necessarily be paying attention to one thing.
Yes.
So family style is kind of almost like a buffet at your table. So say you have a table of 10 people, right? Instead of having everyone stand up and go to a buffet to grab food, or instead of having an individual plate for each person, I always consider it like, if you go to a Chinese restaurant and you get those big bowls of food at the table that everyone at the table can share.
Yes.
So if I like chicken, but I hate fish, I'm going to take 2 pieces of chicken and I'm not taking the fish. Or if I want all of the rice or vegetables, I can take that and then, sucks for everybody else at the table.
Oh my God, I hate that idea.
What? No,
it's very tricky.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people, you'd waste a lot of food versus like on a buffet, right? I'm a chicken guy and that's all I want. Okay, let's talk about that.
Sure.
You're wrong, by the way.
Maybe. I didn't go to culinary school.
Did you know I went to culinary school?
We've done our fair share of family style dinners. When I meet with bride and groom, I usually try to push them in a different direction. The timing is very similar to a plated dinner.
Yeah.
But like Tessa said, you get your mini buffet at your table. You don't got to get up and whatnot. Like she also said, I eat chicken and I don't eat fish.
Right.
Right. So now we got to think about portions on the table. Got to have extras for the people that eat double chicken, no fish.
Right.
Right. So now your food cost does go up a good amount.
I would think that you would have a lot of waste too. Like, there would just
Yes.
I disagree, if I can say why.
Yes, go ahead.
Assuming that you're at a wedding and you're friendly and people like you, if I end up with a lot of extra fish at my table and I see table 2 next to me with extra, I'm like, hey, you guys want to switch? We share.
Okay.
Yeah, a little. But those platters are heavy.
They are heavy, but it's about being
you're serving
friendly.
10, right? You're serving platters to feed 8 to 10 people per table. But that's where the buffet comes in, right?
That's true.
And the average is out. You get the person that takes double chicken, no fish. But then down the road, maybe on table 15, you got the guy that eats double fish, no chicken. Things average out on a buffet, which to me, price-wise, is the best value.
But to kind of simplify this, but if you do a plated dinner, then you also, like, you're catering to each of those person's taste, food allergies, preferences, they're vegan or whatever.
Yes.
Whereas a buffet, you're not necessarily catering to those dietary restrictions. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we still, today, especially more than ever in the past, dietary restrictions play a huge part in everyone's daily meals.
I would hate to be in your shoes because I see it at weddings where it's like, can handle gluten but not nuts, can handle nuts and gluten but not froyo or whatever.
Yeah, we get a lot of them, and it's every single wedding.
Yeah.
And the larger the wedding, the more dietary restrictions you have. We always get vegans, we always get vegetarians, we always get gluten-free, so you can get the allergies.
Yeah.
So on that side, we always have to bring more too, because good example, a couple of weeks ago, we did a wedding, and turns out bride, over the time between the tasting and the actual reception, all of a sudden became a vegetarian.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm sorry, pescatarian.
Okay.
They chose prime rib for their main entree.
Oh, man.
So
explain to our listeners, what is a pescatarian?
A pescatarian, basically vegetarian that eats fish.
Prime rib is off the table.
Presbyterian, but those are different, right?
I guess. I don't I'm going to say yeah.
Okay. But it sounds like a plated dinner is going to be more expensive, and the more you start customizing that menu to your guests, it's going to be more expensive. Is that right?
Yes and no, both. Definitely when it comes to a plated dinner, your labor, your staffing is increased a lot, both front and back of the house, because everything's timing, right? We want to serve everyone together. When it comes to family style, your rentals cost go up a lot, because you're now getting, for example, you do 2 starches, a side, and 3 entrees, right? You got 6 items being served at the table. That's 6 platters.
Per table.
Per table, right? You got 200 people, 20 tables. That starts to multiply. And then you also need serving utensils for each of those platters.
Right.
Plus the extras. You always need backup and whatnot. So for some reason, those items are very expensive. I don't know if it's just a Hawaii thing or if it's all over the globe, but finding platters that can serve 10.
Yeah.
And not only that, it gets heavy, right?
Yeah.
So now you got wait staff that needs to drop 6 platters to each table. And those platters you can carry one at a time. Each platter can feed 8 to 10 people. They become heavy. You can't carry 2 platters.
Mm-hmm.
On a plus, the one thing that I do to encourage couples, if they're doing family style, is to go smaller on your floral centerpieces.
Yes.
Because it takes your entire table. So if you're going to do family style, you need less flour. That's a win. Why are you staring at me?
That's a huge point. We
Thank
did
you,
we did
Jason.
a 170 person family style wedding, and the florals took up so much space, and there was no room to put any of the food. So now
that makes sense. Yeah.
we're like, hey, we got to pull florals and put them somewhere.
But it's a bummer because they've spent so much on the flowers. They're so pretty. And as soon as you sit down, they move it off your table. So
okay. All right. So I'm digging my heels in the sand. I think family style is just a horrible idea. Let's just take that off the table.
I love family style.
I know, but just stop talking about it. We don't want any of our listeners because it takes up space. People, they're wasting food. Buffet or plated.
Okay, if it's a small wedding,
Yeah.
say it's immediate family only, maybe
Let's say
50,
under 100.
I would say 50.
70.
You can do it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It starts to get tricky.
I like a family style meal.
Stop.
It is a lot more logistics. It does cost more money. It gives everyone a headache. But as the wedding planner and the expert on food, because I went to culinary school, I love family style.
It does keep them in their seats.
Okay, but so all right, guys, let's get this back on track. I want to talk about the elephant in the room. Having food cooked on site, served hot, and tasting good, right?
Yes.
That's the magic ingredient for wedding dinners. How do you make that food taste awesome and hot and something people are stoked on?
I mean, basically, it's building out a kitchen behind the scenes, right? I mean, we're trying to provide restaurant quality food, restaurant quality service at an outdoor venue. When there's nothing set up, it's grass or it's on the beach, right? There's absolutely nothing. And we're trying to provide that restaurant experience when it comes to the food and service just out there. So it's all about setting up the rentals, just organizing in the back.
Are there some foods that are better served for outdoor events, the catering where you're on site? So say, for example, like chicken. Like sometimes I feel like chicken is just great for a wedding reception because it's fresh, it's warm, it's hot. But like sometimes fish tends to be dried out, and it's like sometimes I don't necessarily love the fish that the caterer is cooking on the wedding day.
Yes.
So let's talk about the food. Like, what are some good choices for on-site catering?
Definitely, I would say when it comes to fish specifically, it's all about timing, right?
Yeah.
Which is why we rely so heavily on the coordinators to make sure they stay on their timeline. If you're doing something, for example, steamed fish, and you're serving 200 people, first of all, the equipment, that becomes a little bit trickier as opposed to something that we can bake in the oven. So we might sear that stuff early ahead of time, get it prepped, get it ready, go according to the timeline, and then we're just firing in the oven to finish, right? So if a fish can handle that type of cooking preparation, I would say that's the way to go for sure.
Yeah.
And there's certain types of fish that hold up better than others, right?
Definitely, yes. For example, marlin, when it comes to price points, that could be considered a cheaper fish, but that would dry out quick. Mahi's a little boring, but yet holds up very well. And then you got things like fattier fish, right? Your salmons, your butterfish, your that kind of stuff. Those things hold up very well, whether it's plated, whether it's on a buffet.
Yeah, that's actually true. I know you're thinking about that. Yeah, like I think of like the fish that I do enjoy.
Yeah.
It's usually those fattier fishes, but yes, like marlin.
Right.
So sometimes, right, when we're working with a caterer with me, it's encouraging my couples or explaining to them, hey, these things will hold up better on a buffet if you choose to go that route. Or if we're going to be, again, like Jason said, if you haven't seen a full kitchen setup at a park or at a venue, it's extensive. We are building a restaurant ground up.
Yes.
So we need tenting, we need electricity, we need ovens, we need steamers, we need woks, all of these things, lighting, tables, all of that. We need to be smart about it and use the types of foods that hold up to this extreme way of cooking.
And that's what I love every time that we see you guys at a wedding. It's like the food is always on point. Like the temperatures, like the food always tastes good. It tastes like you're at a restaurant, that it was cooked for you specifically. And I think that back end is something that a lot of people don't really think about, how important it is to how you actually set up a full kitchen to make sure that that dining experience is amazing.
Yes. And then that also plays a big part on budget, right? So now you got a couple that has little more limited budget. They're not wanting to spend on all the extra cooking equipment on the back. So now that limits the choices we can offer, because I'm not going to do something that we can't do well.
Well, let's talk about this. So we talked about fish. We talked about chicken. I know you guys do carving stations and things. Let's talk about what are some of like your go-tos for anybody's wedding reception. Is chicken safe?
Chicken safe. But you know what? When I got into our second restaurant, going back, when I had to redo the menu, I did not put any chicken entrees on the menu.
Why?
And I got it. I heard it from my managers.
Yeah.
If I go out to a special occasion, I'm not trying to order chicken.
Yeah, interesting.
It's to me, and I'm more of a foodie guy, it's just boring.
Yeah.
That's the safe call. But then because it's the safe call, you gotta have it.
So, I totally agree with your boss from that period because again, right, if you're serving 100 people, and I see this a lot, you want these really kind of cool, exciting choices, but you have to realize you're serving kind of a broader population. You're trying to please multiple people that may not want kind of the more fancy, exciting food. They want the safe food. They want the chicken. They want the fish. They want the beef.
Yes.
I did a wedding once, if I can tell a quick story. And it was a plated meal, and it was about 40 people. It was small, but it was a plated, and their options were lamb and duck.
Oh.
And that was it.
That's rough.
We had a lamb, a duck, and then I think they had a vegetarian option. So I want to say over half the people ordered the vegetarian option because I think lamb and duck are great, but it's not popular for everyone.
Yes. Yep.
Totally get that. Like there's always going to be the plain Janes in the audience that are just going to, they want the chicken and the potatoes and, whatever those safe foods are for them. Okay. So for all of our listeners, like what are those kind of like safe foods that you want to make sure you have in your menu?
Right off the bat, the thing that pops out at me most would be something like, say, a braised short rib.
Okay.
Right?
I love braised
really
short
like
rib.
It's cooked through, it's soft, it's flavorful. So people that eat meat will still enjoy it. But you got those people that like their rare, bloody prime ribs. And everybody wants a wow factor, right? So carving stations, action stations always come into play. And a lot of people want that. They want, I want the prime rib. We're going to splurge for the prime rib. But and at the end of the day, they know their guests better than we do, but you're always going to get people, can I get this well done?
Yeah.
Right? Oh, I want the end cut. Well, we got 2 of them on a rib, right?
That's true.
But so when it comes to temperatures and you're doing a large event, say you got 200-300 people at a wedding, oh, can I get this well done? We got to go and, okay, what table are you? You know, it logistically becomes more of an issue. And, you know, as much as we don't want to say no to the guests, sometimes it needs to, sometimes we won't be able to.
Right.
Just call me. I'll say no.
Yeah.
All day.
I would say it that way. So for me, when it comes to meats, I always push the braised short ribs.
So doneness is an issue, right? Again, if you have a big piece of prime rib and everybody wants the crusty ends,
Yes.
at some point you're going to run out of those.
Exactly.
That's fair.
Which leads us as the caterer to other potential problems, right? You got a bunch of people that don't eat under well done temperatures of meat, right? So anything but well done. Okay, they're not going to eat beef. What are they going to eat? They're going to eat more chicken, more fish.
And then you run out
Right.
of the
So
chicken
now
and fish.
so now it throws off your averages, right? So everything, I mean, we can't be profitable and leave with a ton of extra food. That from profitability and making sure we make everybody happy.
So what else is on the buffet besides, you know, like those proteins and things? Like, what are some safe things that, like, I know that sometimes I'm at a wedding and I see like broccoli and I'm like, that doesn't give me a wow factor at all, but I probably should be eating it.
Yeah, you know, and again, going to back to dietary restrictions when it comes to salads.
Yeah.
Right, you got your gluten-free, your vegans, right? So now maybe like an egg-based or mayonnaise-based dressing is out of play. Salads that used to be very popular back in the day, wilted spinach salad or something with like bacon or meats or even nuts nowadays, macadamia nuts, almonds, right? So it starts to get a little tricky. So you got to have balance. You still want good food. You still want that wow factor. You want people leaving with an amazing meal, but yet you want to make sure we can accommodate everyone.
So I'm your client, right?
Okay.
What should I have on my menu? What are your go-tos?
I would say definitely 3 colds, you know, maybe a couple of different options of salads, and that would be a good opportunity to throw one in with the bacon or the nuts that you like, but then have a safe one.
So colds would be like salads and that kind of thing.
Salads could be
Fruits,
grilled vegetables, maybe room temperature, not on the hot side, you know, that kind of stuff. I think when it comes to sides, that's where I'm looking at more fruits, vegetables.
So on a normal buffet, right, what I normally see, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, is we'll have, you know, your starters. So some salads, whether it be like a mayonnaise-based salad, right, like a macaroni or potato salad, or if you have, again, a tossed green salad or other, like a wilted spinach or some sort of salad, fruit, something like that to kind of start. And then you go on to kind of your starches.
Yep.
Breads, rice, potatoes, something like that. So a couple of those.
2 to 3. Yeah,
2 to 3. And then you go on to proteins. And again, I want to say with protein, right, you want a diversity. So you don't want all 3 to be beef or all fish or all chicken.
Yeah.
Finding that balance. If you're doing a carving station and you're doing a prime rib, then maybe you need one less protein because you don't necessarily need a short rib. I do want a short rib. You know, you don't necessarily need to go less. You can, but it's really about having diversity. I think for me, with a buffet, it's important to have diversity because you're not customing to each person. You're saying every single person here is going to eat off of this and find something that they like.
Yes. I think that's also the good way to incorporate the wow factor, the action station or the carving station and whatnot would be, for example, chicken, fish, beef, right? Your 3 main common proteins. But maybe you want to do a whole pig as a carving station. Or maybe that's where you want to bring in your rack of lamb or your that kind of stuff. Or maybe your shellfish. You put it on the side, you're doing whatever, garlic shrimp or some kind of sauteed item in front of your guests. But now you don't have to worry about the allergies, the cross-contamination, all that kind of stuff.
So we talked about colds, we talked about your starches, we talked about your hots, your proteins. If I'm sitting here as a client of yours, are there things where you're like, don't do that, that's going to just get thrown out? Like having potatoes or rice or bread or, you know, like what are the things that like that would be at a standard, maybe sit down dinner table that just doesn't get eaten at a wedding?
That's a good question. I usually don't come across that because we guide them in the direction we're trying to guide them.
Yeah.
But I would say the one thing that I try to say logistically or no to would be just bread and butter on the table before they sit down.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know why that just popped out at me, but you know, when they sit down, you start with an introduction. You get your program started. You do your grand entrance, your first dance, your all of that, right? So they're sitting there and they're trying to eat, which is why, hey, well, we want something for them there at that time. But that also includes service and people on the floor and whatnot, and they start eating. But we want them to eat the food.
Right.
You know, we want to showcase our cuisine, not get full on bread and butter while you wait.
Nobody's going to remember a butter roll.
And one thing, I want to just say one pet peeve is like cold, hard balls of butter.
Yes.
I do not like cold butter.
All right, Tessa, I know we talk about this a lot, but I'd say for most weddings that we are seeing right now today, everybody wants to have a custom experience. Cookie cutter weddings are like the thing of the past. And when it comes to like a destination wedding, bringing in those local flavors and bringing in, something that has an experience that's attached to it. Food is a huge, amazing way to do that. Let's talk about some of the things that you do with your company. How do you customize that experience for your couples?
The type of cuisine that we do, we try and do a play on like local Asian flavors and local Asian dishes as well. So for example, I know most people in the mainland wouldn't know what manapua is, right? But you got your Chinese style bao, the bread with the meat in the center, right? You go to like a dim sum restaurant, but we would do, ours is like a sous vide pork belly. We do a crispy bao. So trying to incorporate a lot of textures, some cucumber kimchi, pickled onions, that kind of stuff. Locals get it, I guess. But if you're coming from the mainland, you might not get it, but you'll get the flavor.
Oh, but once you try it, you're like, wow, this is amazing. And I've had it.
So they might not realize it's a play on something, but when they eat it, it's just, it's so good. It's all the different flavors, the umami.
Yes, exactly.
Guys, something that I just thought about that's really cool is the three of us have an upcoming wedding together. It's on Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, nice.
And we are doing a late night taco bar.
Yeah, we are. That's right.
So
and margaritas.
Yes, spicy margaritas. So I think that's kind of a really cool thing is because, this couple is getting married on Cinco de Mayo. Mm-hmm. They were very excited about their menu. I connected them with Jason and they were like, we want to do tacos, like a late night. And I was like, well, why don't we push it to the evening and just open up this late night taco bar for people to kind of make their own, and so it's kind of cool because they met with Jason. They had all these really fun ideas. He kind of tweaked their menu to make sure that it still went with their Mexican Cinco de Mayo party theme.
Yes. That part gets a little scary for me too, because they got some true Mexicans, traveling here. So
no pressure.
So I told them, I'm like, I don't want to do nothing traditional, I don't want to shoot myself in the foot, but we'll definitely do our play on. And so, we incorporated local ingredients, the mango salsas and, that kind of stuff.
Kalua pig.
As the pork.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I guess because I didn't go to culinary school, I'm just going to sort of play the role of, the uninformed, like,
I feel sorry for you.
But I guess like for me, I think, probably a lot of our listeners want to know, like, how do they have that conversation with their caterer? Like, here's what we are kind of thinking. We want to do something unique. Like, how do you get to know their taste? Because everybody has their own unique taste. How do you address that?
I think the tasting, when we do the actual tasting with bride and groom and the coordinator, of course, that's where we get all our information. So we try to do like a little pre-interview, try to make sure we get the likes and dislikes and what style they're looking at prior to doing the tasting. And then we design a tasting menu for them to try to see if we can satisfy those wants and needs for what they want. And then we build their menu that way.
Okay, so now this is going to be tricky, right? What if you're not there in person to do the tasting? How do you do that for like a destination couple that actually isn't going to be able to be there and taste the food? Is it bringing in their coordinator to do that tasting? Or
I think that's a great idea.
I think that's where the experience comes in. That's where the coordinator and they get their value from their coordinator, right? If you're not there to taste and see firsthand, everybody can see nowadays with social media, but you can't physically taste, right? So you got to put a lot of faith, a lot of trust into your coordinator. We've done a lot of, being in Hawaii, a lot of people move away to the mainland, school, careers, but they have family back here. So we've done tastings with auntie and uncle.
Oh, I like that.
Mom and dad.
Yeah,
we've done one with mom and then the groom's best friend, which was kind of awkward because they didn't have nothing to talk about,
The food, they can talk about food and drink.
We've done it where they do the tasting and they're FaceTiming bride and groom. So they're giving their reviews right in front of us.
I've done that before for a couple. At a hotel, I've had to do the tasting on FaceTime with the couple. They're like, how is this? What is this? I loved it. It was fun. Yeah. So when a couple wants to customize their wedding, I think what's really cool is there's so many ways now that we can add in. I know we talked about like a late night taco bar. Mm-hmm. For my wedding, we did crepes and mimosas. I did a breakfast.
Wow.
So when people came, they had a crepe, they had a mimosa, right? Like there are so many ways now that you can kind of add unique additions to someone's wedding. I guess, what are some of the fun ideas that you've seen or that you've done?
I think late night snacks gets fun as well. that's where you can not be so formal, right? Get back to that more casual cuisine that, everybody's partying by then. They're drinking, they're dancing. They need something to soak up some alcohol before they,
Let's be honest, like the food you eat when you've been drinking is different than, maybe at a formal dinner. Like, give me those waffle fries. Give me those types of things, right?
Well, and even Jason's donut station at night, people can smell the oil and they just gravitate to the donuts.
Let's talk about your donut station. Like, how did that happen?
I attended a Cater Source convention years ago. And I saw this, and then the guys doing the toppings were bartenders. They were doing flair, right?
Yeah.
Throwing the bottles around and all that. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Of course, we don't have guys that throw bottles around, but we do a live donut station. I've gotten scolded twice now, I believe, by coordinators because we got to start them early, right? We got to heat up the oil, but then we also test batch our batter. So while the program was going, the big tent was downwind. We started making some donuts, and I think the dad was making his speech. Everyone started turning toward us.
Yeah.
A lot of people started getting up to come walk over and get some dessert. And so the coordinator literally came running over. You have to stop. Everyone is getting out of their seat. Dad is trying to make a speech. Stop right now.
So it's funny because there's two things I think that always draw people. They can smell the oil for the donuts and the French fries.
Yes.
Every time we're frying the French fries or the donuts, there's a crowd every single time.
Pied Piper, right?
Yeah.
What better food than fried foods when you're drinking, right?
There's nothing better at all.
Definitely include that as part of your meal for your dinner, right?
Yes,
for sure. Food cost is one thing, right? When we're getting quotes from caterers, a lot of my clients get confused because they say, oh, this caterer is so cheap, we should book them. It happens a lot. But when we're looking, it's really important. And if I'm comparing catering quotes, to understand what we're truly comparing. And I always say we have to compare apples to apples. And honestly, unlike photography, where a lot of times when I'm looking at the quote, I know what we're getting. We're getting X amount of hours and we know it's the same throughout every photographer.
Yes.
With caterers, the tricky thing is some of them quote for the entrees, appetizers, desserts, different, in different prices. Mm-hmm. Others, this is one price for the food. Others, this is one price and it includes the food plus staffing and plates. So it's understanding, right, when we're looking at catering quotes, what are you truly looking at? Is it just the food cost? Have you factored in staffing, front and back of house, right? So that means the cooks and also the people that are serving the food or refilling the water at the table or, busting the tables at the end of the night, throwing the food in the trash that we've wasted. Also the rentals, right? We talked about building a kitchen from the ground up. Renting plates, forks, knives. I guess, what are other hidden expenses or not hidden, but what are expenses that you feel couples should look out for when they're booking a caterer?
I think that's a good point. I think it even comes down to vendor meals. I mean, everything, right? And
for sure.
Some people got specially priced ones. Some people be like, well, that's the meal. So it's going to cost the same cost as your guest. So, that's something we also rely on the coordinators as well to do, but during our tasting we try to make that very open, I guess, in the conversation that this is what our quotes cover and this is what we're going to need,
right?
If we do this menu. If I do, for example, fried chicken, I'm going to need a fryer on site
and a tent,
and always a tent.
You got to cover. Well, I think the difference, so one thing that I want to make a note of that I've learned, with working with a lot of caterers, if we want to do this really cool donut station somewhere outside of the catering tent, we need a separate tent for that. If it rains, you can't have a hot vat of oil in the rain, right? Disaster. So there are some things that can go uncovered, others that have to be covered. The oil has to be covered.
That's a must-have.
So you're renting a tent, right? A separate tent just for your late night snack. So you're adding that cost. You just want to factor in all of these other expenses.
As someone who doesn't plan weddings, that I get to show up, you don't think about these things. You don't think about needing a tent. You don't think about if you're going to be having the need for a frying station. Like, those are really important. Is that coming through your caterer? Is it coming through your rentals? And I also, the one thing I wanted to say, just kind of thinking about it, is when you're looking, we say we're comparing apples to apples. If you're looking at butterfish versus tilapia, right? And you're like, oh, why is this so much cheaper? Well, it's tilapia. Like, it's disgusting. Butterfish is amazing.
You do like butterfish.
I do a lot. But I mean, I think that's such good advice, because I think a lot of times for a lot of our couples, it's like, what's the numbers? How much is this going to cost per person? Yep. But what are you getting for that? Are you getting something that's going to be enjoyable, something that's going to be unique and customized, or is it going to be like this horrible wedding food that nobody wants, right?
Definitely. I usually try to tell the client, make a list of your must-haves and your wants.
Yeah.
And then prioritize, right? Your must-haves got to be on there. It's on there. Now, how much of that budget did it dig into your budget? And then now it's your wants. What you can fit in there. What are you willing to sacrifice to get it?
You sound like a wedding planner. I like that. Jason can come work with me.
Well, Jason, I learned a lot. I'm so happy we have a real chef on the show, not somebody who just went to catering school and tries to pretend.
Culinary school.
Culinary school, whatever. Like, you're the real noodle. She's the fake noodle. She's the impasta.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's awesome.
But
another one bites the crust.
Oh, man. Okay. Let's really quickly hear from you. How can all of our listeners find out more about your company, Bamboo Catering, and just give us your plug?
Check us out on Instagram, on social media, bamboo_catering, and our website, bambooCatering.net. Find a lot of information, see a lot of the things we do and what we offer, and trust your wedding coordinators.
Hey.
Oh, thanks. I like that one.
That's it.
And we'll have Jason's information in our show notes as well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow us. And thanks, everyone, for putting up with Tessa.
You guys are incapable. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of Unveiling Paradise.
If you enjoy our show, please follow us and rate us on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. It would really mean a lot.
And don't forget to also get on our mailing list and follow us on Instagram. Just do it already.
Until next time, this is Tessa.
And this is Joe.
And don't forget, your happily ever after
is just a plane ride away.